Hey, I'm Delise.
And I'm Ginny.
We know that parenting comes in seasons, and even the smallest wins deserve a happy dance.
Join us as we chat with moms in every stage of the parenting journey, fixing our eyes on Jesus each step of the way.
This is Blessings and Motherhood, because we believe that you can hold tissues and confetti at the same time. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Blessings and Motherhood. Today we have Robert Bortins on the show. Robert is the CEO and the founder's son of Classical Conversations, and we talk a lot about his testimony and how he felt being a homeschooled child who's now grown into the leader of a large homeschooling company. But we also give you a really good peek behind the scenes of CC.
Yeah, some of the things he said I didn't even know about. And I know my husband works for CC and I've been involved for a few years. And it was just really helpful just in understanding a little bit more of CC's heart and hearing it from Robert himself.
Absolutely. So if you're used to our shows, you know how things go around here. The first half of the show is exactly what you would expect. It's an encouraging parenting conversation. But if you are looking for something more, or if you've come from Everyday Educator or the Refining Rhetoric platforms, we're so glad that you're here and we hope that you enjoy it.
Hey, Robert, welcome to Blessings and Motherhood.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we are so excited to finally get to talk to you.
Yes, I know Delise was on my show, and I guess both of y'all were.
Yeah, we were both on the show.
Yeah, both on my show earlier, so glad to be on yours.
Thanks. So for people who don't know you and your family, can you just give us a quick snapshot? Where are you guys in life right now?
Yeah, so our oldest two are in foundations, and the oldest one will be in essentials next year, and our youngest is almost 3.5, and so he will hopefully be in community next year as well. So this is our last year with no essential students for a really long time.
Yeah. So you have a podcast, like we were just saying, and can you just tell people really quickly, like your elevator pitch for your podcast? What's the podcast about?
Yeah, so our podcast is Refining Rhetoric, and it's all about using the tools of learning to look at politics, geography, current events, economics, as well as interviewing different thought leaders, all about trying to live a better biblical worldview life and live out in the world like Christ would have us live. So it's once a week, drops on Wednesdays, new episodes, and they're usually about 30 minutes plus or minus 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people have really enjoyed using those conversations to kind of just try to navigate how to talk about current events and more challenging topics. And so somebody actually wanted to know about more resources that moms can use, and like, how do you actually build that show? How do you know what things to look at and what's a credible resource? So can you try to just break that down for us?
Yeah. What are credible resources? That is a difficult question right now in the world that we live in. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the first thing to do is we have our trilogy, the core, the question, and the conversation. So those are really the three core books any mom should read, any parent, whether you're in Classical Conversations or not. Yeah. Every business owner should probably read them as well, because they're just the foundation of how you learn and how you make wiser decisions. And so those are the three books that we recommend. And I'm always looking at the catalog and looking at those 15 tools of learning to remind myself what those are. And then, I just kind of looking at, I always figure economics is a little bit more likely to be at least some relevance, because of it's harder to lie about money and what's going on, because we still have some semblance of a free market in the United States, although there's a lot of cronyism going on, but at least we can see the results of our decisions better. So that's why I do a lot of those. And as far as like world news, I mean, I think it's important just to go look at a lot of different resources and just know what the biases are of that. If you're going to watch Fox News, what are those biases? If you're going to read something from CNN, what are their biases? If you're going to go read the BBC, I mean, a lot of people like to go to foreign newspapers to feel like they get more accurate information, at least. So it's, I think, it's obviously Twitter, a lot of people, or X now. You can at least see what the talking heads are thinking. But yeah, there's no, I guess just I don't remember if it's Will Rogers, the comedian, said something. If you read or if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed, and if you watch the news, you're ill-informed, or something like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's a good resource, and that's why we always need to be looking at it through a biblical worldview and a Christian lens of how is this in history. How has this gone before? What would our faith have us react to? How would we react through our faith in this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. As we learn how to navigate that, because I'll be honest, it's a lot new to me.
Yep.
I don't even know some of these biases like Fox News or CNN. Is there a place I could go to see maybe where they bias, or is that talking to different people?
Yeah, I think, there's different nonprofits that rank them by are they left wing? Are they right wing? Are they far right, far left? Are they center? And then, I always just think that if it's a left wing nonprofit, doing it, then they're probably going to have the center is going to be farther to the left. If it's a right wing nonprofit doing it, then the center is going to be farther to the right. So unfortunately, there's not.
Yeah, no, that's good though.
way.
And then, like you said, put it through the biblical lens, talk to the people you trust most, I'm sure,
Yep.
and see what they have to say too. And just, as a mom, as I navigate this world and I'm listening to things and I'm reading things, and maybe my kids start to ask questions, because even Banks has been hearing a lot recently of what's going on with Israel and the war over there, and I don't always know how to navigate how much to share with him. Could you give a little insight on how maybe you do that with your children, or maybe a recent example of you having to use that in your home with your kids?
Yeah, I think, we try to shelter them from world news just because there's always so much craziness going on. And, I think it is important to ask them based on their level of experience and knowledge, because they might hear about, what's going on in Israel or something, and you probably want to be just very shallow with it. There's bad people all over the world, and there's some bad people that attacked Israel, and captured a lot of people. And, whenever that happens, versus going into the nitty gritty of Israel, was given this country, was given this land, and, some people don't like that they were given land. They used to, and going into all those details. So, and then even, you're not even going to get all those details accurately portrayed by any of the news sources either. So it's almost impossible to give them accurate information, other than there's sin in this world, and we all need Jesus.
Sure. You're making me think of a conversation that we had recently on the show, actually, with Camila Carter. And she was talking about that scene in The Hiding Place when the father asks Corey Ten Boom to carry his suitcase, and it's way too heavy. You guys remember this? And then she's like, "Oh, I can't carry it." And he says, "Well, it would be unfair for me, to ask you to carry that." And I feel like that concept, if you haven't heard the show, y'all go listen to it. But I feel like that concept applies here, because I think sometimes it's tempting when we want to be forthright, we want to be honest with our kids. And obviously you guys know that my son is too, but he is very inquisitive, and he's in that stage where he'll say whatever I say. So you want to give him the correct term, but you don't want to give him too many terms, because he's going to say everything you say. It can be tempting to give them too many details, I think, sometimes, because you want to be honest. But I like what you said about how it's just meet them where they are, and maybe honestly start with some questions to see what are you actually curious about before I just dump all this on you, because it's too much for us to carry. So it's going to be a lot for our kids to carry. I do want to acknowledge, just for those of you who don't know, the ages of our children, because none of us have teenagers. So can we go through that real quick? I just said Leo's 2. Your kids are
3, 5, 7, and 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said 3, and the oldest 2 are about to have birthdays. So probably by the time this airs, Trey will be 8 or 7, and Lily will be 9. Right now they're 6 and 8.
Yeah, exactly. So we're navigating it from that perspective. But I feel like when your kids are young, at least this was my experience when I was younger, I asked more questions. And as I got older, I tried to figure it out for myself rather than asking questions from my parents. So I feel like it can kind of go both ways.
Definitely asking them, what have you heard?
Yeah.
To try to find out what they're getting at.
And it's interesting when you ask them that question because they can say something really, really crazy. I found banks. I'm like, where did you hear this? I don't even know. It's not in my house. But to be able to correct them in that, in, like you said, in an appropriate way. And that is hard to navigate sometimes because Banks, my oldest, asks questions and he is not happy if you do not tell him the answer like fully. So it's hard to just give him like, buddy, we'll talk about that a little bit later, or go through details later because he is not happy with that answer. But again, he has to trust mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. So one of the things I love hearing you share about is honestly just your faith. That's something else that he talks about on his podcast, is just how your faith intersects with the way that you navigate the world. And I've never heard you share your testimony. So when I was putting together things for this, I said, this is what I want to hear. I want to know how, and I know for some people it's a process and for other people it's a moment. But can you take us back to, if you don't have a moment, maybe a time in your life where you realize like, okay, I know you, God, but I want you to be my Lord. Like I'm surrendering.
Yeah, I mean, my mom kind of became saved when I was really young. So I think I was probably 3 or 4 when, I said the prayer or whatever whatever that we did back then. And I wouldn't say that I would say that I always was saved and was walking with God, but really just being a young adult and probably doing a bunch of things I shouldn't have been doing, just kind of seeing that what the world had to offer wasn't a good substitute for what God had for us or for me. And so just really, just in my mid-20s, probably just saying, I tried all what the world has to offer, and it's not satisfying. It's not fulfilling. And so that was when I really surrendered my, I'd say, entire life. There wasn't really like a moment, but probably like 26, 27.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like stories like yours are so encouraging. Everybody's story has something to offer, but I feel like stories like yours are really encouraging for parents, especially now as I am really praying about, Lord, I need you to save my kid, and asking the Lord to use the things that I say to have a positive impact on my child, but knowing that I can't save him, that's his own personal walk. And my testimony is very much a black and white. Like there was a day that I made that choice and the Lord set me free. But I think sometimes for you to know that all the seeds that you planted over time will grow. Right. And then that the Lord can get your child's attention in a moment that isn't, this huge light bulb moment, but that would be enough for them to commit the rest of their lives to him and to change everything forever. I just find that really encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible says, we're to be known by our fruit. And so I would just encourage parents, it's not just about having well-behaved kids, but having them be able to develop those skills and that mentality of how am I going to produce fruit from my faith as an adult. And I think if we all went through life thinking through that, we would be able to change around our towns and country pretty quickly.
That's good.
Yeah. How do you think, you said you went through that time period in your 20s where you were seeing what the world had to offer. You had the kind of change of heart. How has that impacted the way that you're a husband to April and the way that you parent your children?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. As far as like my kids are concerned, I think just knowing that God has a plan for them and giving them really those tools and that trying to give them a firm foundation, maybe so that they don't do some of the dumb stuff I did. And just knowing that it'll be all right. So, I mean, I know you always hear this statistic of, young people walking away from the faith. I would never say that I walked away from the faith at all, but I wasn't doing like going to church regularly and those things. So, I think just making sure that they understand the importance of those, and not that, I mean, we were at church Sunday night, Monday Bible study and Wednesday night. So we were there quite often growing up. But just I think continuing to instill that into them. So it's just part of their life and culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a lot of the same story you have. I grew up in the church, went away definitely in college, and kind of came back. And I think it helps me appreciate kind of what I went through, but also be able to really, at this age in their life, let them know about a relationship with God. That's kind of the thing I thought that I missed when I was younger, was that it's a relationship with God. I can talk to him. It's not just this religion. I'm still nervous to share that part of my life with them. That will be one day down the future.
Suitcase.
Yeah, but to also know if they do halter or go away from the faith, that they can come back, because the Lord pursues us constantly. I think that's in my testimony. It sounds like it was in yours. He did not stop pursuing you through those times.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. So as you look back, because obviously a lot of people who are listening know your mom and they know of your parents. If you don't know who I'm talking about, his mom founded this company that is sponsoring everything that we're doing right now, Classical Conversations. So Lee Bortins is your mom. But I know that although you had slightly public childhood in that way, because she writes books and things like that, you also had private childhood. So as you think back about that, are there things that you're really grateful that she did that you feel like really impacted the way that you live now, and maybe something that people wouldn't ordinarily know?
Well, I mean, one of the things I think that was really impactful was just reading out loud to us. So I just remember, even probably, into 9, 10, maybe even older than that, just every night, just going into, on the couch or in bed and, her reading Chronicles of Narnia or Tolkien or just any of these, good foundational, Christian sci-fi books that really helped, explain the world. And I didn't know what, I enjoyed the stories. I didn't really understand what the details were. I don't always, even now when I talk to English people and I read the book, I enjoyed it. And they're like, did you like this and that? I was like, oh. It's a good story, but trying to digest, those tidbits. And I can start pulling them out now. So I've got a little bit more wisdom. And so that's one of the things that I do with my kids is read those books out loud to them, or in books out loud to them almost every night.
Yeah. What are you reading right now to your kids?
Oh, right now we're reading, we're going to get started reading very shortly the Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Same.
Because I read that every year to them at Christmas,
Yes.
even though it drives them nuts.
It's so good. It's literally a classic. We talked about this last year on the
Yep.
show. It is a classic. We should all be reading this book.
I don't think I've read this book, guys. Oh my goodness.
It is
I need to go get it.
hilarious. Ginny, you have got to read this book. It is so funny. And frankly, it makes me cry every time. It's so good.
Yeah, and then my wife always makes fun of me when I cry when I'm reading to them.
So good. I mean,
She's like, are your eyes tearing up again?
Yes.
awesome. Well, yeah, go get that book for sure. And as I think back over, I was homeschooled too, over my childhood. That's my highlight, is one of my big highlights that my mom read to us. And so it's just something I'm trying to remind myself, that you're never too old to read to your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The little one, I read Brown Bear, and those type of books to him.
Does he read that to you now because you read it so many times?
Yeah, it's I was trying to figure that out the other day. I was like, I've probably read through the 3 kids, Brown Bear, close to 2,000 or 3,000 times.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
You want to read it to everybody now? No,
I can. I don't.
We can all do it together.
I can flip the page.
Right. I'm just curious because I didn't really grow up. My mom didn't really read to us out loud. And I know you guys did. How old were you? Was this all through your high school that she read to you out loud? Was there a moment where she stopped? And how does that kind of change the way you see reading out loud with your kids?
You can go first.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you an age. I mean, I would probably say 11 or 12, probably when we stopped doing that on a regular basis. Yeah, but I mean, even now we'll read the Bible out loud or different, when we're doing different training events and stuff like that, we'll read different parts out loud as a group. So, I mean, I think reading out loud's really an important skill for anyone to have. So as adults, you have to practice it, and why not practice it by implementing reading time with your kids and passing on good stories and wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think she ever stopped. I'm going to be honest. I think she did it the whole time. It's worth acknowledging that I'm the third child of 4. So I still had a little brother, coming up behind me, but I also struggled with reading. So that was a big reason why my mom just kept reading to me. And it took me, reading and math were those two subjects that it just took me longer for it to click. It did click, but it took longer. So yeah, I think she did it all through high school.
That's awesome.
And she would do it. They didn't read to us before bed. They would do it like in the middle of the day, whatever the book was that we were studying. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm finding that it's helping me learn to read better by reading to my children. So not only is it good for them, it's been good for me too, because my education was crazy growing up. So
for sure.
All right, so Robert, I went on Facebook and I asked some of our CC moms for questions that they would want to ask you as well. So I want to ask you one right now. This is from Andrea. She asks, how do you encourage families to stick with challenge?
Yeah, I mean, the whole entire program was built around challenge. And so the tools that you're learning in Foundations and Essentials are especially preparing you for that, and each challenge builds on itself. So, I mean, I would 100% encourage everyone to go through challenge for, the reason sometimes people drop out maybe for like a free community college, but I always think about, the time. And these are 2 transformational years in your student's life. Is community college really going to give them the academic rigor that you're looking for, or are you just trying to check off some government boxes? And, I heard a story this past about a month ago, from a mom who their child stayed through Challenge 4, and one of their child's friends dropped out to go to community college. And so, they graduated from Challenge 4 and they graduated from high school and, with their AA, they both went on to the same college, but her student was able to get scholarships and was basically paying less for 4 years in education there than the student who's just going for 2 years. Because they were not eligible for scholarships, because most colleges are only giving scholarships to incoming freshmen. And so they actually are going to pay more for college and get a lesser education, in my opinion, than the student who went through it. So parents don't necessarily know that information going into it. They just think, oh, I can save, college costs are crazy. We can save some money. But you're really not setting your student up for success. And, we hear stories sometimes from students who maybe are in classical conversations, or families who have younger students in CC. Their older kid was maybe already in a public or private school when they decided to homeschool and it was working for them or whatever. And then a lot of times we hear from those students that like, man, I wish I had gotten that education that my younger siblings were getting. And I've actually heard of a couple students who graduated from, a brick and mortar institution in 12th grade, and then actually would come back and do a Challenge 4 year so that they could experience a year of classical conversations before, entering into their next phase of life. So, I mean, that's, I would say do whatever you can to get in. I graduated, I did Challenge 1, 2, and 3, and I definitely think it was probably a mistake to go to college a year early and not do Challenge 4. So, I mean, it was a different time back then than it is now. Sure. So I would just say from my own experience, it was probably not the best decision.
Yeah, and I know we also had another question, and it may be a little later, but for those challenges that may not be full, so maybe there's only 2 or 3 kids in that community, in that challenge, and a parent is trying to decide, oh, well, there's only 2 kids. How are they going to have good discussions in their challenge class? What would you say to that mom to encourage her to stick with it?
Yeah, go recruit.
There you go.
Go recruit. I mean, parents should feel pressure and responsibility to go help get their kids' challenge levels full. I mean, it's just not the tutor or the SR or the directors or classical conversations responsibility. I would just probably tell them too that even on small classes, I mean, it's great because you do get more one-on-one time with the director, get more opportunities to present your papers, and can have deeper, richer conversations. And so I think that's super important. I mean, most of the time that we're talking as adults, like we're very rarely in a room, like having a conversation with 10 people, right? Most of the time it's, 2 or 3 people just like this, maybe 4 people at dinner. And so, if you're in business or at work, of course, there's meetings and things like that where you might have more people. But even then, you're typically having, no more than 7 people in a meeting. So, I mean, having 2 or 3 people is, wonderful. But parents can definitely just go tell other parents about this wonderful education and get more people to join. It's never too late to enter in CC. So if you've been in public school and have a 10th grader, I mean, it's a great time to jump in and join a community. And, it's a lot of times you have 3 or 4 parents who are saying, it's a small class, so I think I'm going to do something else with my kid. Well, if those 4 parents just all put their kid in, it'd be a large class.
That's right.
And so, just the quality of the education that they're going to get, whether it's 2 students or 12 students, is going to be above their peers. And they're, quite frankly, unless there's, an ACCS school around you're probably not going to find that type of conversation in any box and mortar. And if you pull them out and just do them at home, they're definitely going to have any conversation. If you stick them on an online, screen time's a big thing about how bad it is, but there's all these online schools. So we know that we're putting, a lot of parents, they don't put 2 and 2 together.
Sure.
But they're sticking their kids in front of a computer 7 hours a day to do school.
Yeah.
It's like, there's so many health consequences.
There's a lot of aspects. Yeah.
That's even if you're getting a halfway decent education, you're still, going to have future issues. So
there's that. And then also, can we just quickly talk about CC Plus? I know that we're not ambassadors, but we're going to be ambassadors for CC Plus today. Because if you do want your kids to get some college credit, there is actually a way that CC has set up so that you can keep finishing challenge and get the credit that you need.
Yeah. So we have a program called Classical Conversations Plus, CC Plus for short, and it really allows you to do your challenge work. It's an opt-in. It's pretty inexpensive to get some college credit, and you turn it into professors. They grade it for you, so that's less work on the parents. Like, hey, if you don't want to grade your kids' history papers or whatever, you can go opt in for CC Plus and get a professor to give them feedback. And so it's a way of getting 9, 12, however many, 15 credit hours, so you can get that on your transcript. Give yourself a little bit more flexibility if you do go the college route, potentially save a little bit of money and still be available for those scholarships that colleges offer. So, it's kind of the best of both worlds, and it's a great opportunity to be in community, getting that robust classical education without having to sacrifice, getting some of those credits out of the way if that's important to your family.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break so that I can tell you about an amazing movie coming out. We are making April 26th a family day at the theaters. From the creators of Jesus Revolution comes Unsung Hero. Join the Smallbone family on their adventure from Australia to the United States, where they homeschool, find church community, and write songs, becoming some of the biggest names in inspirational music, Rebecca St. James, and For King and Country. Now, this movie is only in theaters beginning April 26th, so you don't want to miss getting your tickets. And hey, tickets are on sale now. You guys can visit tickets.unsunghero.movie to reserve yours today. That's tickets.unsunghero.movie. And if you guys go to the movie and want to tag them in social media, you can use #UnsungHeroMovie. Now back to the show.
There you go. So going back to what you just mentioned about technology, we had a question from Brandy about CC's use of technology and kind of how you see the future. So I'm just going to read her question. She said, what are your thoughts on technology? We are given CC with so much to offer there, yet we are using technology using technology is a complete no-no within community. So she's saying like on a community day,
Sure.
it's a no-no. But there's so many different digital natives who are coming in, like the new Gen Z parents. So do you see that coming into play in the future for CC? How do you guys plan to navigate helping digital natives to explore and making sure that CC appeals to the digital natives? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is, as adults, we're much more open and have used technology for 20 some years
Yeah.
to educate adults. So, I mean, when, Zoom and all that's, natural now and everyone's been doing that. Pre-COVID, that wasn't the case for
Right.
most people, but we've been using there's technology that has come and gone for digital training and digital meetings that we were early pioneers of. So we were kind of on the bleeding edge of that technology and, using it to educate adults. And so, CC Connected is for adults, it'll continue to be that because we want to empower adults to lead their family well. And so, I don't see that going away. Sorry, it is going well, so it's not going away. And then for, the younger ages, of course, we have the app for the kids, for the Foundations app, and for the memory work that parents can use. So if you're doing car school or something like that, I use it to review with my kids in the morning because I can just go to the right cycle and go the right week and, go through it with them. So, we're not going to be embracing technology in the classroom, anytime soon, other than for maybe playing some audio. I think it's, some people think chemistry class or science class, biology in schools now, they're just looking at iPads. They're not. We actually dissect sharks and frogs and mice in real life. Cow parts. Yeah, I don't even know all this stuff. Yeah, we do. And so we're learning those fine motor skills and looking at it, in front of us versus schools have gone away from that and are just watching videos on watching someone else do it. So, I don't see us going away from that. We call ourselves the keeper of the books. There's more and more research showing that you retain more when you have a physical copy in front of you and are using it. I love to listen to audiobooks, but if it's one that I really want to implement, I go buy the physical book after listening to it because you can actually, go back and, highlight things, fold paper, review things a lot easier. So keeping the books is super important at Classical Conversations, and I would really just, encourage everyone to reject technology as much as you can for young people. I always feel sad, for these. Apple does a great job of convincing teachers they need iPads, and I always see these ads. Hey, help! I'm fundraising to buy 3 iPads for my classroom of second graders, and I'm like, you're literally spending time and energy and money fundraising for a product that's going to make your classroom less worse for the students. And so we just have a backwards system that we go to. But hey, it's cheap and you can make a bunch of money on, because every once in a while people are like, hey, my buddy has an online service and he's looking to sell it. Would you guys be interested in purchasing it? And you look at the P&L and stuff. It's man, they just make a ton of money because once you get it set up, I mean, you're basically paying for servers and it's really high margins. So it's very lucrative for the end user to do online education. It's not so good for the students.
So he's saying he's looking out for your kids.
That's right. All right. Well, we had another question from Carrie, and I love this question. In what ways could our communities offer more opportunities for dads to attend? And I know this Carrie is a director, so I'm sure that's why she's asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult because a lot of times the fathers, typically in the homeschool family, there's someone who's working full time. Typically, we still have 9-to-5 jobs, and a lot of times it's the dad, so it's kind of difficult for them to take days off. I was actually at community this morning because it was our family presentation day, and we've got a lot of families. So we actually had another family presentation right after us, and their dad was there. So, I know a lot of dads try to make that, which is, just making them feel welcome. You could try to do like a dad's day. I know people have done like dads and donuts where they, try to get the dads, maybe start 30 minutes early and the dads come and just meet each other. Or doing a dad's lunch type thing. So those are some basic ideas to maybe get dads to the community for half an hour. But I do think it's probably difficult for most people to take off a day a week to be there all the time. But there's maybe a day where they encourage dads to be there, so that more of the dads came and met each other, then that would probably create some community.
Yeah, and then they'll take off work more to come.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, got another one for you. Why is there not a director for challenge and tutors for each level of challenge, like foundations and essentials?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, we have directors in the foundations and essentials, and then they go find tutors. And the director's kind of in charge of the whole program, but we want the students to be in classes of no more than 8. So they go and find these tutors versus in challenge, we have what we call challenge directors, and they also are the tutors. So 7th grade has its own, 8th grade has its own, 9th grade has its own. And so the reason that we have it set up that way is just because on the younger ages, you have, more siblings, and the foundations program, of course, your K through 6, you're doing the same thing in the kindergarten as 6th graders, so they're all over one academic. Versus each challenge level, has 6 strands, but they're learning different things in each of those strands. So if you had a director over all 6 challenge levels, then they would really have 36 different academic things going on with those tutors. So that's why we have it set up that way. We are always looking at ways of improving that community experience. So that is something that we've been exploring, is if there's a different way for us to set up that challenge or even that community day. So that's always our bread and butter. So that's how it's set up currently, and we're definitely looking at would there be more ways to continue to grow and strengthen those challenge levels.
Sure. So on a similar level, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and then we can go back. When it comes to having the one director for F&E, this question came from Christy. She actually wants to know why Foundations Essentials Community are structured with only one director instead of a board of directors, because she said that she's been doing CC for 5 years and she's seen small communities fold because of that. The only one director model, it just puts a lot of pressure on that person, is her perspective. And so she wants to know if many co-ops do a board of directors, why isn't CC trying that?
Yeah, so one person needs to be responsible for the relationships, for recruiting families, for meeting with the church and facility.
Sure.
And it's not other co-ops fail all the time as well. That's what we were part of other co-ops growing up. You have internal conflict when you have a board of directors, and so there's pros and cons to every single model, and so you just have to pick the model that you like best. But at Classical Conversations, we have that K through 12 curriculum already laid out for you. So a lot of times these other co-ops, they've got the mom that's in charge of science, and the one that's in charge of math, and the one in charge of all these different subjects, and they're all making their own decisions and trying to come together. So if you're building something from scratch with no proven history of success, then you would need a larger group of people. But for managing the day-to-day aspects of a community, it's worked for 27 years for us, or 26 years, however long we've been around, since 1997. We think that it's the best model, because for us too, with our licensing agreements, it needs to be with one entity. So it's worked out well for us.
Yeah, that's great. I know too, I have seen directors in the past have a mom to help with like the science science experiments, and then a mom to help with the math. So that kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of her during the day because she knows that that mom has all the art supplies ready. She's going to get it to each classroom, and then same thing for the science experiment. So I think that goes into like why community is so important and why CC places so much emphasis on community. Because yes, the director is there and like you said, has the responsibility, but she also has all these other moms and dads to help her along with that. If something comes up family-wise that she does need to step out or something like that. Yeah,
so it should, community, we need a leader. We are a discipleship company, discipling adults. And so our support reps, our sales reps are trying to support these directors. So if there's, a conglomerate of directors at one community, then that's going to make that discipleship not as strong as if we have one person that we're pouring all these experiences that we've had, that we're pouring into them and helping them to become the best that they can be so that they can help the moms. So, community is not a passive drop off, don't get involved. One of the reasons that we can keep it so inexpensive is because, parents are expected to be involved in that community day and helping make a great experience for their kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. You ready for another one?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to jump down here too to this one, Delise, real quick. From Christy, she says, why is it that CC will not allow a homeschooling parent to be in leadership if all of their children are not in programming? She said there's lots of reasons that CC might not be a perfect fit for everyone. For example, a child with developmental delays could thrive in foundations, but this child might not be the best fit for challenge. But if a mom has other kids in foundations and feels led to direct, why wouldn't she be able to?
Yeah, I think for us at Classical Conversations, we want to have families that are modeling the Classical Conversation experience for those around them. And if you're going to be in leadership, you need to be leading. And Classical Conversations really sees the opportunity for parents to tailor things. We've had people with learning disabilities in challenge and participating, so we know that it's doable. Maybe they take challenge A 2 or 3 times, right? Yeah. If they've got a lot of struggles, or we've had students graduate from foundations or essentials who had significant learning differences. So it's an opportunity really for them to model this sinful world that we've lived in. It causes human pain. None of us are perfect. We've all got issues, but are you leading in a direction that we believe is important at Classical Conversations? And so we've seen leaders who don't have all of their kids, early on, and we experienced the pain of that and just the disappointment from those families as they've seen communities fall apart because their leader wasn't committed to giving their kids a classical education through high school. That's why, and we believe every kid should be in Classical Conversations, all 50 million in the United States, because they'll benefit from that community aspect. So, we just kind of reject that idea that Classical Conversations isn't a fit for every student.
I also add that I've heard Lee say, because this is a very common question, which is why we're putting this question on the show. I've also heard Lee say that it is helping the mother because it's giving you the ability to not have a divided heart. Mm-hmm. Because if you do have children who are, let's say you've got 2 in public school, you've got 1 in F&E, and you've got another one who's kind of doing challenge but not really, you're pulled very thin. And it would be extremely difficult for you to be able to do all of those things well. So essentially, you're lying to yourself if you feel like you can have your kids everywhere and lead well. So we're also saying we're helping you to do what you are trying to do to the best of your ability. And if that really is something that the Lord is leading you to do, and you do need to have your children spread, then you don't need to lead.
Right.
So you can make that choice. And so we're kind of making the choice for you is something that I've heard said.
Yeah, we would be unloving to those individuals if we ask them to be a leader in something that they're not committed to being in, and be unloving for the people that are underneath them, expecting them to be committed to this way of life, and they aren't.
Right.
So it's just
not fair.
It's not fair to them as a parent, and it's not going to be fair to the customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it just reminds me again of how CC, of course, CC cares about your kids and their education, but CC also has such a big heart for the parents. In my own experience, I know like everybody loves the parents. They want to disciple us. You guys want to help us in every way we can. That's why you made the new CC Connected so wonderful for us to have all of these resources. We have the practicums. You have forums for area directors and sales representatives. And there's so much just poured into parents so that you do feel confident in teaching your children. You feel confident in leading them to the Lord, really in just every aspect of life. And I think that's another way of you guys just really looking out for the parents. You've been around, a few times or two, you know what's worked and what hasn't worked. And for us to just trust,
Yeah. I mean, we always say, we've got so much homeschooling experience, and sometimes I go try to calculate it, but literally thousands and thousands of years of homeschooling experience is being poured into the curriculum, being poured into the community day experience, being poured into our leadership development. Yeah. And it's something that we are all living ourselves in. I mean, a lot of people don't realize a lot of these other curriculums are written by people who don't homeschool, may not have kids, may not ever plan on having kids. So, our curriculum and our setup is created around parents who've graduated successfully out of high school into the real world, living life well done, faithful servant and that's how we set ourselves up. And so Lee likes to say the medium is the message, which is an old marketing term. And I do agree that if you're presenting two different fronts to individuals, I mean, imagine. And I always like to use this. Imagine you go to a Ford dealership to buy a new car and all the sales guys are driving Toyota. Are you going to buy a Ford? No, you're going to go buy the Toyota. Mm-hmm. And so, it's good business too to make sure that our leaders are, bought in.
Yeah, totally. All right, I'm going to change gears on you for a little bit. This question is from Jocelyn. And she asks, if you have said that the parents are the God-ordained leaders of their children and they know what's best for them, then why would you try to stop them from getting state-funded scholarships if that's what God is leading them to pursue? I know you are concerned about government overreach, but isn't this overreach on your part?
Well, I'll tell you that God isn't asking them to pursue this funding. So if God tells you something and it contradicts what's in the Bible, you're not hearing from God. And so that's why, for us, again, if parents want to, found their homeschooling experience on money that's stolen from their neighbors, and they don't want to trust God for their providence, they want to trust in government, then they're welcome to do that. They just can't be a leader in classical conversations. But parents who take those funds are not, they are allowed to join local communities, but we won't take those funds in order for them to pay for it. The Bible is pretty explicit. I don't remember the exact verse, but if you watch our video that's going to be coming out soon, My $1 Billion Quest, you can hear that verse. But it basically says, God says, stop stealing, go work, so you have something to give to your neighbor. And so I would just encourage anyone taking government funding to stop stealing, go to work, and have something to give to their neighbor.
There you go. So I have another question for you. This is from Brandy. She says, I would like to know if you've ever had a time where you thought that the business model that you have for classical conversations was hindering the classical model, or vice versa. There are a couple different ways you could interpret this question, but I'm going to let you interpret it your own way.
Yeah. I mean, no, I don't think so, because of our view of what is the classical model. So if you think about what God's called a parent to do, it's to educate their kids, and they're responsible for all realms of education. And so that's why our challenge directors are expected to model that learning for the families, and to have all seminars led by them. So that's how we look at the seminars and why we have, someone, why don't you have experts teach each one? Well, one thing, that's not what the homeschooling parent's doing at home. Two, they're not supposed to be teaching. They're supposed to be facilitating a conversation. And three, that would get really expensive because they want to get paid $60, $70 an hour, and that's not what directors get paid, or that's not what they end up making. So, and you'd have to go recruit 5 people for every summit, every group, and so it would just be crazy, and it's not the homeschooling experience. How we've set up our business model, we aren't just saying that we need to have a biblical worldview or Christ-centered worldview with our students. We think that's how you need to set up and run your businesses and organization. And so that's part of the reason why we have 12 as a max in challenge. We try to look at how Jesus had his disciples, and that's how we try to make sure that, our managers aren't managing more than 6 or 7, but definitely not more than Jesus had on discipleship. Our ARSR, our support structure with directors and families in the field is all modeled off of that discipleship model. And so I think, I would argue if you believe that the purpose of a classical education is to learn the tools of learning and to then apply those to all the realms that Christ has called us to oversee on our time on earth, then there's not a better way of doing that. And by sending your kids to a classical school where they have, especially for K through 12, where there's experts for each subject or whatever, they are not actually getting a full classical education because you still have those watertight bulkheads of learning going on, and your English professor doesn't know what your history professor is doing, doesn't know what your math professor is doing, and so you're still not getting a fully integrated education. So I would argue that our model helps the classical, and quite frankly, when we go to different sorts of events with people, either classical events or Christian events that we're at, just third-party experts say there's no students like classical conversation students. And so it's always humbling to hear that from, people that you didn't even know that knew you existed. And so I think all of that classical Christian worldview that we have is poured into everything that we do. But, we have the flesh, right? We're in a sinful world. We're in, 2023. There's technology that we have access to. There's technology we don't have access to. And so, we're also living in the world and the time that we're in and trying to see how that all fits together.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you another one. This one is about updates. And this question is from Mary Helen. She says, why has the fine arts and hands-on science not been updated in 14 years? I've been doing CC, and foundations has been updated 3 to 4 times. So why not the other parts? And she said, as a former teacher, I don't think that CC equips directors and tutors to teach these subjects, and the resources that we've been given or had to buy don't help much. She also adds that we are already having to rely on other moms to put lesson plans together. She's talking about CC Connected, and to supplement different things online. And even as an art teacher, I struggle to teach an art history lesson without the complete project in 30 minutes. What can you offer me?
Yeah, well, we have a whole plan through 2030 on updating our curriculum in different levels in different ways. You're definitely not going to become an expert artist learning oils in foundation. So the point is, getting exposure to those ideas, and for families to teach and supplement that at home if they want their kids to be better artists. So probably not going to become a Van Gogh through the foundations program, but you'll be able to start seeing those shapes and start understanding art at a deeper level. So, I just definitely would say that our students are some of the best artists as far as like for their age groups, and they know more about art than anyone else. So it's often, if you're an expert in a field, like it sounds like she's an art expert, of course it's going to be a little bit shallower than, the robustness of someone who's a professional at it. But again, we're trying to make this doable for that homeschooling mom to give their children an excellent education. And through 27 years and 14 years of her own experience, clearly she's in agreement with it. So no, I appreciate that question. You can there's always ways to go deeper, and that's why for foundations, most states require roughly 36 weeks of school. Foundation is only 2/3 of your school year, so if there is a subject or something you want to dive deeper in, you can definitely do that. And then we also, you can't go 110 miles per hour in every subject. So we want there, even in the challenge years, we have some subjects where we're a little bit lighter on the amount of work and the in-depthness of it compared to some of the other subjects, because we know that you need to be restful, having some easier subjects where you're not being as stressed out about it. So, and of course, we love everything that our parents put together, and those are some great resources that families can access and use, but definitely not necessary.
All right, Emily would like to know, why keep doing math together in class at the challenge levels? She says the kids are at all different math levels and programs, and she doesn't see the value in the hour of discussion when there can't be a discussion, and that goes for physics in Challenge 4, which she has directed before.
Good news, Emily. We're solving this issue for you.
Woohoo! Got you, boo.
Yes. Yeah, so that's part of the reason that we've developed and come up with the math map, because there's not really any classical math programs. Saxon's definitely the best out there currently, but even like the homeschool version of that is always like being threatened to being taken away. They've increased the prices on it, and so it's always a battle, and there's not really a math program. There's no classical math program, and then there's no math programs that are designed for the entire family. And so with the math map, your kindergarten through 12th grader will be doing this similar set of types of problems each week, but at their grade level. And so there will be able to have those conversations with people at different levels. Also, math is a little bit more difficult to have a conversation when you don't have the same levels. But I mean, even if all three of us read the same book this past week, and we're all adults, we'll have all taken different things, missed things, latched onto things based on our experience and what we know. And so, again, you're not trying to teach math in that hour. You're trying to have that conversation around math. And so every student's going to know something. Like if I put a second grader in a calculus class, there's a plus sign, right? So I can ask that second grader, point out the plus signs, right? What do you see here that you know and understand? It's like, okay, well, I see and know and understand the plus sign, right? You're not going to be able to get much deeper with it, but you can include them in the conversation. So again, I would just plug, for all challenge tutors, go read, or challenge directors, read the conversation, right? It'll help you out in those subjects that have students at different levels.
100%. Let's talk about money.
Money.
So Jacob wants to know, why can't CC tuition have a scale for multiple children in a family, like where perhaps the first is a full price, and then the second price of tuition and all the other ones are way more affordable or cut in half, or some sort of a scale?
Classical conversations, the money that you pay in tuition does not come to classical conversations. That stays in the community to run the community, to provide for the tutors. Obviously, there's like supply fees and the church building and insurance and all of these different things that a community needs. And so we've decided to break that up by student. So we could charge, a flat fee per family, and that would be obviously higher than what one student is, because most families have more than one. So what we have done at Classical Conversations, though, because we love big families and we know homeschooling, like I have 3 kids, and I know that's a small family in homeschooling circles. And so what we've we've done a number of things to keep costs down. One is like our application fee, which does come to Classical Conversations and helps us support those communities. The first student in a program is one price, and the second one is significantly discounted. We have our fees for each level for enrollment and access to CC Connected. We cap that at 3 programs. So if you have kids in 4 or 5 different programs, you're only paying for 3. So that's a way that we've tried to reduce price. We have our One Foundations guide that you can use for, this one I think will have a 9 years between editions. So, it's not consumable. So, obviously you can write in it and use it, but, you can use that for 9 years versus most programs have a kindergarten level that you have to buy and then a first grade level you have to buy. And so when we look at the cost of Classical Conversations versus other programs in the market, most of the other programs just cost more in books than what we charge for tuition and books. So, we're very sensitive on the pricing. And of course, if you have 8 or 10 kids, going out to eat at McDonald's is going to be very expensive. So we just encourage people, like I said earlier, or that question about ESA money is just once your kids get older, make sure they're working. We hear all the time about challenged students who pay their own tuition, buy their own books, because they see the value of the education that they're getting. So there's definitely opportunities to fundraise if you need it. There's scholarships through like the Homeschool Foundation. You can set up a Give, Send, Go. So there's all sorts of ways. I always tell people, like, if you need tuition money, why don't you go down to find the guy who owns the auto, parts company in town or whatever that changes oil and say, hey, Jim's Oil, I'll wear your T-shirt to class every single day if you'll pay for my, kid's $500 so she can get a Christian education. And, if, Jim's at your church and wants your kids to get a Christian education and get some advertising out of it, then that's a great way to get funds. So where there's a will, there's a way. We see single, moms who aren't getting any support from their husbands figure out how to pay for Classical Conversations. So we've made it so that people can afford CC many different ways. If you're qualified, you can direct or tutor. I think roughly, we, including foundations tutors, there's 45,000 families and roughly 13,000 people in Classical Conversations are getting some sort of funding, whether tutoring or directing through those mechanisms. So because I've seen people of all socioeconomical backgrounds in Classical Conversations with significantly more struggles than people who can't afford it, I know that it's really about the choices we make with the funds that we do have.
All right, Robert. Well, Emily wants to know, she says, I have been in CC for 12 years, graduated 1 through C4, and plan to keep on going. I have many friends who have left, unfortunately, who find the for-profit organization of CC conflicting with our use of the nonprofit churches, and they truly think that it's unethical and that we are opening up liability for the churches and the directors, especially in California. Can you speak into that?
Yeah, we've been operating for 27 years this way. Churches 100% have the right to use their facility to further Christian education on any way they see fit. And so, we had individuals who made that case 4 years ago. They actually emailed the list of churches to the tax auditors in many states. Sometimes those tax auditors went and talked to the churches and went to audit, and they basically found that it was inaccurate information and a waste of their time. So, that would be foolish to think that coroners, right, are for-profit entities and they use churches all the time to, host funerals. The florists that are for-profit use it. There's vocalists that are for-profit that use it. The pastors get paid. They're for-profit, right, individuals. It's just nonsense as far as how our laws are put together, that would be the case. if that is an issue for you, you can create a nonprofit entity, and there's people that have done that. It's more hoops to jump through. They're welcome to do that if they feel so led. But it's important to remember that Classical Conversations does not use these facilities at all. It's a group of parents who are doing basically a licensed program that are using it to be the same thing like if you had a book club at your church, right? It's John Maxwell, who's for-profit, using your church if you're getting together to read his book and have a book club in there, or Dave Ramsey, who is a for-profit individual, or he might be nonprofit, I'm not sure. I know he makes a lot of money. Individually, he's for-profit, for sure. So it's just, it's a misunderstanding of tax law, and it's a thing for someone to jump onto if they want to find an issue with us. But believe me, states are always looking for ways of collecting taxes. So, if it was a real big deal, or if it was true. The other thing that people don't understand about property tax is most of the states do, because we did all the research after people accused us of this to make sure that we weren't putting anyone in harm. The few states that have limitations on it have basically prorated. And so like for Michigan, which was one of the states, this auditor went and looked at 3 different churches where communities were meeting. He basically told them that even if their church lost their property tax exemption, their property tax for the entire year would have been like $1,200. And then they would have and if they prorated it for Classical Conversations, the prorated amount that they would have owed would be $185. So one, they wasted a lot of government resources and time and energy, wasted pastors' time and energy.
Yeah.
And 2, because Classical Conversations uses the Classical Conversations communities, which are not Classical Conversations corporate, uses facilities. If they played prorated amounts, it would be a drop in the bucket as far as, okay, every family throw in $4 to pay the property taxes this year, right? If it was required.
Yeah.
I mean, if every single state started requiring it tomorrow, it would literally just be another line item on the facility fee, and it would, instead of paying whatever you're paying now, it would be a couple bucks more. I mean, obviously, if you live in downtown New York City or Miami or, some, really place that has high property taxes. But then, hey, maybe church people would stop voting in politicians who use property taxes as a hammer on their citizens. So
yeah. So basically what we're trying to say is, number one, we've done our due diligence. It really is the heart of Classical Conversations to honor the Lord and to honor our leadership. We're not trying to get around something here. And then also do your research. So that you actually are educated about these things, because if you do have a concern, there is an answer and you can find it.
Yeah.
So last thing, as always, we want to pray for our leaders. So how can we pray for you in this season of your life?
Yeah, I mean, we always just kind of ask for wisdom, try to do the Solomon model, because we don't know what's going to happen next. Seems over the last 3 years, all the things have happened next in succession. Crazy. And there's not really a whole lot of light at the end of the tunnel right now, with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. So yeah, always, I think, just pray for wisdom for us, pray that we lead well and that we continue to stand firm in the biblical and Christ-centered worldview, so that we don't get, pulled aside or go astray with the world's counterfeit, what they have that's counterfeit to what the gospel has for us.
Absolutely.
Robert, we love to ask this question on our show. How can we throw confetti and celebrate you right now in this season of your life?
I just got done with baseball season with the 2 oldest and just saw them really mature and do well. We got kicked out of the playoffs really early with a loss, even though we finished second overall. And Trey, my middle son, had a friend on the other team, and after the game, even though he was sad that his team lost, he went over and gave a big hug to his friend and picked him up. So
that's so sweet.
That's
that was
the
sweet.
best. Thank you for being on the show today. This has been fun. I hope it's been helpful for you guys who are listening to just hear behind the scenes from Classical Conversations. Robert Bortins is our CEO and his heart for you guys. And if you haven't gone to listen to his show, go listen to Refining Rhetoric. It's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thanks for listening. I loved that conversation, hearing Robert's heart, hearing a little bit behind the scenes with the math map, just how CC was founded, just really beneficial.
Absolutely. So if you like the show, make sure to go and follow us and subscribe. We are everywhere at Blessings in Motherhood. And if you have a friend that you think might enjoy the show, please be sure to share it with them. Last thing is, if you could take the time to leave a review, reviews help so much for people to find these shows. It tells the actual platform that you liked it and that other people should like it too. So leave us a 5-star review or give the video a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.